What's going on, everybody? My name is Derek Johnson. I'm a fatherhood ambassador, and welcome to another episode of the Fatherhood Experience. This is our third episode of 2026. And for the month of June is a fantastic month. It's a celebration month. Celebrate our veterans, we celebrate the LGBTQ community, and we celebrate mental health, right? And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So, I've got three fantastic gentlemen and fathers with me. I'll start with Iz for the introduction, and then we'll hop right into some of the topics about mental health and what it means to us as fathers.
My name's Ismael Santiago, father of six and grandfather of one.
What's up, everybody? My name is Larry, father of two.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Chris Bishu here, father of one.
Right. And I have two fantastic kids as well. So thank you for the introduction, gentlemen. So we talked about this a couple years ago, and it was really well received. And so we kind of all thought that this was the perfect time to jump back in, with it being Mental Health Month. And so we've got a couple of topics that are pretty on point, pretty on brand. And, I think that we can get some good discussion with the four of us. And first off, the basic question, that I wanted to ask you guys is, what does mental health mean to you, right? Like, how does it play a role in your lives? The progress that you've seen in your life. What's the first thing that comes to mind is,
So, mental health to me, it actually means a lot of different things. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's bad, sometimes but in general, mental health to me, it's like, just overall how I feel, how my day's going, and realistically, it can change daily. It could change throughout the day. Um, but for me, it's what I try to be is just, be in a good mental space, clear head, calm, cool, collective, because that keeps me at my peace, which is where I like to be, and how I want to proceed with what I do, and the energy that I'm giving out to the world.
yeah, keeping the peace within yourself is tough, right? Like that's commendable, because it's not easy, and it takes dedication daily, and it's a struggle sometimes, right? It can be.
hmm
Um, Chris, what about you? What's the first thing that comes to mind when somebody says mental health from a fatherly perspective?
That's a good question. Um, to be honest with you, I think it's still evolving for me.
Mhm.
I'm not really sure for my generation of men. I know we're all almost around the same age that we were really ever taught how to navigate our own mental health. And I grew up in a time where, as men, we were not able to show fear. You were not able to show vulnerability. You were not able to cry. You were not able to tell anyone you felt sad. All of those were viewed as signs of weakness,
Mm.
and you couldn't be weak. You couldn't present weak because that was seen as a liability, and it could literally be a matter of life or death. And so it in many ways, it was not a very healthy way to raise a man. Now I think about mental health and what it means. I think I look at it more holistically and comprehensively to think about all of those things. I am a man and I do cry. I am a man and I do feel fear. I am a man and I do feel sad. Especially now, having a child of my own, you realize that those emotions are difficult to contain and difficult to manage at times. You're not only feeling those things for you, you're feeling them for someone else, right? And you're always taught to be strong and you have to be strong for everyone else. And you're kind of grappling with, well, who's strong for me? Right? When
Yeah.
when do
hmm
I get to be weak? When do I just get to cry like everyone else? And I don't have to worry about the judgment and the ridicule if I express my emotions. Now I'm realizing that it is okay, as it is becoming more popular, I would say, to express those feelings, those emotions as a man. And yes, we do have to be protectors, we do have to be providers, we do have to be strong, and we can still do all of those things while being everything else that just comes with being a human being and experiencing those emotions. And so when I think about mental health as a man, it is that because the societal
Mm.
information, the societal pressures tells you this is what a man should look like, this is what a man should be, this is what a man should do, this is what a man should have. And if you can't be, do, have those things, if you can't contain those emotions, then you are not a man. You are not, you are not a provider. You are not a protector. And it took a long time, and I think I'm still trying to grapple with how to purge myself of those social conditionings because that's just how I was brought up. Those were the men that were around me. And, when you come into your own, you just kind of think about who do I want to be as a man? And I'm raising, a young black boy in this world. What type of man do I want him to become? Right? Do I teach him with those same lessons that I was taught, or do I help him understand a more comprehensive definition of what it means to be a man in manhood? Like when we look up definitions of manhood, you just see certain terminologies that's associated with strength and all these other stuff. But you're like, that can't be it, right? Like that can't be everything it is to be a man. And so I do think about this a lot in my own life. But those are just some of the early thoughts as you asked the question, Derek, that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic response, and I have a follow-up question, and then Larry, the same follow-up question for you, Chris. When you talk about your evolution and your personal growth throughout this, I'm curious because I can remember a couple of instances in mind. Can you identify like a couple of points in your life as a dad where you felt almost embarrassed or timid to yourself, right? Like it's just you and your kid, and you recognize like, ooh, I don't think my dad would have done that, or ooh, I don't think the hood would appreciate that, or something along those lines where you recognized your own growth. Does that question make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me. And I'll provide two examples, both very recent examples. Um, my son just graduated kindergarten last week,
Congrats.
and
Congrats.
my thank you. I appreciate you, fellas. My parents came up. My mom and my stepdad came up to Massachusetts to attend his kindergarten graduation, which is a big deal for our family. We don't often get together, at least here in Mass. My wife and I usually have to travel out to New York to see them. And as my son is on the stage with all these other kids, I can't help but contain the thoughts in my head. And I'm trying to fight the tears from coming down my eyes, right? Because there are all these people in the audience. I'm like, damn, it's kindergarten graduation. Be like, come on, you can't cry here. But what was running through my mind was my dad never had the chance to see me graduate anytime because he
Yeah.
died very young and I left him very young to come to the United States to stay with my mom. My mom was in Brooklyn, so my sister and I we came over to Brooklyn, and I was very young. I was 4 years old when I left.
Yeah.
So he never got a chance to experience that with me, and consequently, I never got a chance to experience that with him. So I remember when my son is walking back, as I get outside and I give him a hug, and it's just like I love you.
Yeah.
Uh, that it both made me proud, but it also like it hurt my heart. Like I can't consciously process hearing my dad tell me he loves me. Like I know
Yeah.
my mom tells me that he did those things when I was younger, but I don't know. I can't remember it, right?
Right.
But my stepdad was in my life. My stepdad is in my life. I'm 41 years old now. This is a man who, for all intended purposes, is my dad, right? He
Yep.
has taught me the lessons of manhood and fatherhood and boyhood. Like he's helped me navigate those phases in my life. I have gone through many instances in my life where I tell my stepdad I love you, and I've never heard those words back.
Mm,
Right. And so when I talk about that evolution, like it takes who I am now
yeah,
to continue to be able to tell him that, realizing that I may never hear those words back from him.
yeah,
Um, and I don't think many men would do that. I think after a while, you're like, well, you know what, shit, I'm, I'm not gonna say it anymore. Like I'm telling you this, you're not reciprocating. Like, can you? But he shows me, he expresses it differently, different generation,
yeah,
and I get that. But man, wouldn't it feel great to hear it, right? To just have that moment. And I think it's just my awakening. It's my conscious processing that allows me to go, he's not capable of saying that right now. It's not that
yeah,
he doesn't feel it. It's not that he doesn't express it. He is not capable of saying those words, maybe because he never heard those words himself.
yeah,
But
Yeah.
the man I am today is only possible because of who he raised me to be. And so I need to learn those lessons that he has taught me, evolve into someone different because he has allowed me to be a better man, and be able to say those things. And that's the challenge, because I'm able to say that to my son willingly
yeah,
now. It took a very long time for me to say that to my stepdad. I didn't say those words to him until I was an adult, right? And so maybe not hearing it from me when I was younger, like, harden him from saying it back now, right? So I think about that.
that's really deep, and I appreciate you sharing. And I think that, everybody deserves to have those words said to them, and it takes it takes a dedication. I think that's the word, to understand, and an emotional um ability to recognize your surroundings and say, okay, I am still going to say this to this man who I do love, but I know that I might not ever hear. Like that's a lot, and I think that shows a lot of emotional range, and it can't be easy, man. So that's appreciated to share. And that's uh, really, really insightful, just as far as, how you've processed that and turned it into, it almost, from my ears, like it almost sounds like motivation, wrong word, but it does sound like a little bit of internal motivation on how you are expressing it to your kid, right? We know what it feels like, and usually there's one of two ways where we go with it. We do as our fathers did to us, or we blaze our own path. Yeah, really, really appreciate you sharing. Larry, same two questions, right? Because I remember some of the stories that you had said the last time were awesome. And really raw and real when it came to your upbringing and hearing. I do remember all the love that you have in your family now, right? And your unabashed ability just to tell your kids you love them at a moment's notice. Like the first time I heard that, I was really, it just made me happy. So I'm eager to hear some of those stories again, but share what you got for us.
Yeah. Back to your question of what comes to my mind first when I think of mental health. I've always associated mental health with crazy. That was it. If somebody had something to do with mental health, they had some sort of problems going on. It took um it took years of work when I used to work in the group home and do that type of work. It took years of training for those jobs and the work experience to kind of like fully get in depth of what mental health is. But from the outside looking in, it was always crazy. If I never felt crazy, I never felt like depressed or nothing. So I always felt like I was good. Maybe that's a problem itself. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I always just associated that with, you know, mental disabilities.
Yeah,
Um, and like I said, it just took years of training to kind of like figure out what it really is. Um, and then so I can't really answer your second question about like if I would do something that my father wouldn't have done because I didn't grow up with one. But what I can say is um a real cool moment that I had was a conversation with my son and just asking him how like it feels to like just do things with your dad and because I never had one and I let him know like this is all the first for me. You know what I mean? It's the first for you and it's the first for me.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of those moments, but I don't have really moments that I can like relate to from my father son experience or whatever. But
Well, I'll put it I'll put it like this then, and appreciate you sharing it as always. Um, with without having that role model, right? Or without having that experience, um, like how I'll ask like this: what do you think your kids now learn from watching you, Larry? Like when it comes to your ability to process anger or stress or, speaking about emotions or, and any one of those wide topics that you can sort of put under the mental health. But like, what do you what do you think your kids learn from watching you?
so I have a two part answer to that question. One part is more what I think I would like them to learn. Um, and that is really just take whatever it is, take it on. You know what I mean? Don't run from it. Don't try to put it aside. Just take it on and either beat it up or let it beat you up and then it'll be over with. Um, the second part is because the notes that you had sent me, I let my daughter read that part and I asked her if she could answer that. And she said basically, similar to what I said, like just taking it on and, take it head on and everything. But she also said that she notices that I like bottle things up. So I take it head on, boom, and then I bottle it up. And I don't really allow it to run its course. Um, and when she told me that, I was like, damn, I don't really think that I do that, but wow. Then I asked her, I said, so what what do you take from that? What do you learn? She was like, not to do that. And I was like, all right, well, that's good. You know what I mean? That's cool. But it was cool seeing from her perspective, you
Yeah.
know, as old school, like Chris say, how we were taught as an old school man, I don't see nothing wrong with that. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, cool. You know what I mean? I'm just an old school dad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but when it comes to like, it's tough when it comes to my son because, right, I want him to know that, it's okay to cry, but don't be a crybaby.
Mm,
So it's a fine line. You know what I mean? I tell him to express himself, cry when he's hurt, but don't cry when you can't get candy. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, um, like I want to teach him. Sometimes you have to hold your feelings inside. You know what I mean? You just can't go around being emotional all the time, you know? Um, but I guess it's just how to teach him how to do it. You know what I mean?
I do, and it's funny that you mentioned that too about the candy, right? Because I Avery's 10, right? And he is sort of trying to figure all this out too. And I think, what we deal with boys, in my opinion, right? Like is trying to come at it from a newer approach where it is okay, 'cause, and I genuinely feel that, right? Like it's okay to show emotions, but I also as well am trying to have him not complain and cry over everything, right? And so never mind the fact that he's 10 and his brain is literally still trying to figure all this out, right? But I've told him a couple of times, even as a 10-year-old, like, look, it's it's tough being a man. You know what I mean? And there are aspects about how you move through this world that you're not going to understand until, like I'm mid 40s and I still don't understand some of this, you know what I mean? And so it was like not trying to lecture him, but slowly trying to lay the groundwork for having him understand that life is complicated. Being a good, like, being a good guy and a good man, right? Those are the same phrase, but two very different meanings, right? Being a good guy versus a good man, right? Or being a nice guy versus a good man, right? Like, I want him to be a nice guy because, yeah, but I want him to be a good man. And that takes work, and trying to lay that groundwork of that specific thing, Larry, that you were mentioning, the emotion piece of, yeah, it's okay to cry, but here's a list of things that are not okay to cry about, right?
Yeah, yep,
Here's a PDF presentation. I want you to cry about this, this, and this, but not this or this. Maybe this on Tuesdays, only if you're with four or more people, and it's like it's not,
yeah.
so but I feel that because that's legit, man. That's
You ever you ever see that video interview with LL Cool J when he was giving the example of the difference between a good guy and a nice guy? And he says that, I think he said he wants to be he's a nice guy, he's not a good guy, or
yeah,
something like that. So he's like, if a lady is coming
Yeah.
down, walking down the street, and a guy runs by and snatches her purse, and he chases that guy down, roughs him up, gets the purse back, right? He's not a nice guy for what he did to the guy, but
right,
he's a good
It's a
guy
good
because he
guy.
went and got the lady's purse back. You know what I
right.
mean? So it's
Yep.
just a balance. We have to try to find like a balance of that to teach our sons.
Yeah,
Well, part part
that's
of it part of
good.
it is also asking our kids, right? Like there's this thing I do with my son at least every other week where I ask him, like, what did I do well this week as your dad?
Oh, wow.
Right? Like I always ask him that. And what could I do differently? What would you like me to do more of? And it's always fascinating to hear the answers from his now 6-year-old brain, right? Like before when he was 5, he would just say things like, you know, you are on your phone too much
Yeah.
when we were talking, or I want you to play with me more. I want us to do more things outside the house, like those type of things. Like it lets me know I'm present, and the more I am present and I can regulate and manage myself around him based on the feedback that he's given me, that's what he's going to internalize and that's what he's going to express, right? And so if I disregard the feedback and I stay on my phone, then he's going to grow up to be dismissive, right?
Hmm.
And not give people his attention and time. If he's telling me that, hey, that I probably got too angry with him too quickly and I continue to do that, then he's going to learn that that's an appropriate response, and not learn to manage that. Because I actually see it, our dog, right? We have a dog named Brooklyn. And sometimes Brooklyn likes to run into the woods. So I'll just yell at her. And when I'm like, hey, Jay, go outside, go get Brooklyn, he would open the door and yell the exact same stuff I just yelled. I was like, oh, damn. Right? Like he's, and Larry knows him well, right? Like, and he's modeling exactly that. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. He's going to express exactly what he sees from me.
Yep.
And I need to be mindful of that. And so if I can regulate, if I can control my emotions while also expressing them in a healthy way, that's what he'll know. Right. But I also have to ask for that continuous and constant feedback. Hey, because this is my first go around at this, right? Like there's no blueprint to what this is for you. Like other people will tell you, hey, this might work, this might not. Try this, try that. That's fine. But until you're in it, like you
Yeah.
you don't really know how your kid's going to respond. So there's no blueprint for your actual kid, right? And so I need his feedback. I need his evaluation, in the same way that I also give him mine. Like, all right, cool. hey, you got too angry when I said no candy. This go around to Larry's point. Like, I don't want you crying for that. I don't want you crying if I say, hey, you're not using Alexa right now because you've been on this technology device for too long, and now I need you to do some reading or some math. Like those are that's the balance I'm trying to find. And they don't always immediately respond the way you want them to, but you're doing it with a purpose and for a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's at least in my experience, the consistent reminder on top of that of the why has been you know, um, lessened the blow a little bit, and the more, because that feedback, you said is vulnerable for us as parents, right? Because we're the parents, we know everything, and here we are getting feedback from our kids and a 6-year-old on how we can do better. It's like that's not how this is supposed to go, you know what I mean? And I have that at the back of my head when because I ask when I'm having some good conversations with the kids too about how dad's not perfect, and what are some things. And I want to be open, and I am open, but there is a big piece of me that's like, nope, you're 10, you don't know what you're talking about. Like that's not, no, we're not doing that. But it does make them more open, and in the long run, it does help with the communication. It really does. It's the trust factor, right? They trust that they can be open with you and tell us how they really feel, and that's incredibly valuable. Is you've got a plethora of children to give you feedback. How are your uh what's what's it like with their interactions with your emotional well-being?
So I would love to say it was always great, but like there have been times. So like me and my kids, we would always get into like these conversations, like a group of them. Now my kids outnumber me, so sometimes I felt like I was getting attacked in some cases, but it wasn't that I was getting attacked. I had that mindset like I'm the parent. What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? So that I had to unlearn that and try to like learn it from their perspective. But my kids don't really, I don't think they're really that shy when it comes to them telling me what they think is wrong. And part of that leads to like one of our other shows when we were talking about kids advocating for themselves and their young voices, because I've always been okay with them speaking up. I've never like, it was very rare if I was like, shut up and listen to me. It was like if they had something to talk about, I always wanted to know. Well, tell me now, and they're like, no, I don't
Mm,
want. No, tell me. I want to know what it is you're thinking. And sometimes it was a challenge, but for the most part, I always thought those conversations were great. I loved hearing this stuff, even though sometimes what they would tell me would hurt a little bit. It would sting on the inside. Um, but it was good feedback that I needed to hear. Like the whole mental health thing, I would say, especially with the kids, and then having so many, to Chris's point, it was a huge evolution to me because I've mentioned it before. The father I am today is definitely not the father I was when I had my first son at 19 and everything. So there was a lot of learning lessons to get me to who I am today. Now, do I wish who I was today mentally that's who I was back then, absolutely. But obviously it was things I had to learn. So along with that mental health conversation, I would say throughout the years, I'm sure my kids noticed this as well, but I feel like when it comes to emotional intelligence, my kids got a different version of that
mm.
as the years went by.
With is I'll keep it with you, flipping the perspective a little bit. Do you feel that you have that you are more in tune with your kids as far as their emotional well-being? Like I think, and the reason why I say this is because I think that I can tell when my kid's upset, both of them, right? Like, and there are some easier tells than others.
Yeah.
My daughter is 12, going to be 13. She's in seventh grade, going into eighth, right? So there are some genuine social dynamics that I understand the words and what they mean, but if you put me in the middle of that, I'm absolutely lost. What I lean on is the fact that they they do come to one of us for that emotional support more so than just the I'm in trouble. And I think it's because we've also sort of built that safe space for them, to know that the conversation will be just that, a conversation. And for us here, I think it's allowed us to at least know a little bit better when to back off because we can like we're a little bit more in tune with their emotional well-being. They don't want to come to us for help yet, which is fine. But I'm curious, and for Larry too, with an older child, like how has your ability to I guess get them. Like I don't know how to phrase that, but do you understand what the question? Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Go
you
ahead.
going, Larry? All
No,
right.
go ahead.
So hopefully this answers your question.
It better.
One, so like I'm pretty good at noticing there's something wrong with my kids, and I'm not shy about asking them. And and a lot of times they'll be like, "Oh, I'm okay," and I'll be like, "Well, I know you told me you're okay, but I feel like this is what I'm feeling," and then I tell them that, and then they'll explain what's going on. And sometimes it's as simple as, oh, I just had a bad day at work, and that's why I'm like, or I just had, I have older kids now, or school was boring or something. And then the other thing I was going to mention is, and excuse me, what was the other part? I feel like there was a two-part question in there.
It was probably just kind of a long way just to say like, do you feel that you're in tune with your kids? And if so, like how do you assist them in managing their emotional needs?
Well, pretty much just by trying to talk to them, um, because they my kids are older. They're all technically adults and they're all trying to navigate through life. And I try to give them that space to do that. But I always want them to know that I'm here for anything and everything. I'm here. And then my youngest son recently came to me without telling too much detail or anything. He was like, "Dad, I want to talk to you real quick." Um, and he talked to me about it, and I took what he told me really. I took what he told me really well. Um, and then, yesterday I was like, "How you feeling?" And his response to me, it kind of hurt a little bit, not because it was a bad response for me. I just don't want him to feel like emotionally that's how it is or it has to be. But it kind of does have to be, right? Because, sometimes we make our bed and we got to lay in it. We got to deal with what we did, right? So I'm asking him how he's feeling, and he's like, "Well, it kind of doesn't matter what I'm feeling because it is what it is. It's going to happen." And I'm like, "Well, no, it does matter how you feel. You could talk about your feelings. I understand that in some cases we not might be able to control everything that's going to occur, but it's okay to talk about it and express how you feel because you gotta process these feelings and get them out. Because the last thing I want is for him, be lashing out at school because he's not getting it out, or be being with a bad attitude with his friends or something." Um, but I wanted him to know that it's okay to have feelings and it's okay to talk about the feelings and to process those feelings, even though it's understood that you may not be able to control the whole situation because we can only control what we can control. That doesn't mean we're not allowed to have feelings for it or have emotions towards it.
That's nice. Yeah. Um, Larry, what about your opinions?
For me, with my daughter, it's a look. It's a look in her eyes that I just know all right, nothing is right now, you know? Um, I always joke with my kids and I always say I'm a lion. You know, you are my cub, you are a lion too, you know, we do as lions. So um I don't know, it's just a look in her eyes where I know in her face that I know, all right, something's wrong, something's bothering. Now the challenging part is, and I kind of like took notice to it when she was younger,
Hmm.
that, you know, she would have her moments and we'd ask her what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong. And even if she was crying or whatever, she'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm crying. I don't know. And it wasn't until recently where that kind of happened. And I just told her in the midst of it, like, listen, you have to learn how to vocalize your emotions. That way we can help you. You know, I can't help you if I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to, you know what I mean? Um, and the weird thing about it is that happened like late at night one night. We went to bed, we went our way. And then you know, every morning every night I always tell my kids sweetest dreams. Not sweet dreams, sweetest dreams. And then the morning is great mornings. So, and I ask them how they slept.
Hmm.
So that following morning, she wakes up, great morning. How'd you sleep? And she was like, no, I was just thinking all night about what you said to me. And I was like, what? About how I need to learn how to vocalize my emotions. I was like, oh, all right, you know, that's pretty cool. You know, you actually listening and stuff. Um, but with my son, still learning.
Yeah.
He's good at like just keeping a poker face. It's good. Everything's all right. It's fine, Dad. Um, yeah, with him it's still he's 9, so it's still like I'm not gonna say that I don't know, but if it's not anything of the obvious, I really wouldn't know. You know, like he has kids picking on him sometimes at school. Every day I ask him, you know, how was school? Did anybody bother you today? You know, no, everything was okay. The only way I would know, and I feel like it's a little cheat code because it's like he tells me without telling me, right?
Yeah.
How was school today? Oh, it was great. Cool. Wow. How was school today? It was okay.
Yeah.
Well, what was okay about it? Who was bothering you? Who did it?
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
Um, but other than that, I don't think I would. I think I'm gonna have a hard time with him trying to figure him out.
Hey Larry, quick question. Where do you
So
think he learned that poker face from?
I know, I know. Trust me, I know.
Yeah, it's definitely a cheat code too because there have been a few times where Ave will what I've learned with both of them is, and I've read it before, didn't think it applied to me, but then the more I was in the car with them after I picked them up from school, they just want to decompress. Like they don't want to talk to me, right? And I would always do the, hey, how was your day? Literally the moment they sat down, right? No time to decompress, just like, and I didn't do a ton, but it was just another question after they're done with school. But I still do just say, hey, how's your day, bud? And he'll do a good, and he'll just sit in the car and he'll just like look out the window. And I notice it at the time, but I still haven't put it together where if we have maybe like a rough night or there's just like a lot of anxiety, the day will come out at night, right? And it'll manifest in a fight for some reason. And then when I'm putting the pieces together, Larry, to your point, I'm like, yeah, okay, makes sense. He was a little quiet, he was a little distant, little this, little that, and then boom, my best friend didn't want to play with me today, and his world's over, right? And like I get it. Like you're in fourth grade. You just want your homies to play kickball, and if nobody picks you, that's devastating. I still remember when like Mr. Gorman struck me out in fifth grade like that in front of everybody. Like that still stays with me. Still stays with me. His spinners, man, those are brutal.
Yeah.
Stick stick stick
But
with
do
that,
we
Derek.
but do we make it hard for kids when we ask them these open-ended questions, right? Like we're trying to understand what's going on in their minds, the same way that people have tried to understand what's going on in ours. But it's a very loaded question, like how's your day or how was school? Like
Yeah.
how do you answer that, right? Like because they're trying to formulate some kind of specific answer to a very open-ended question, right? And so with Jay, I kind of took a different approach. And this is just through my work in legal systems. Although I've never directly worked with the kids, it's always at the policy and practice level, realizing that the decisions that I make at the executive level affect what happens to the kids, right? And so I used to always tell my staff that in order to modify human behavior, we have to be very clear what the path is. We have to be consistent in what we do. And then we also have to be clear in the examples that we use. And I would always ask if you want information for a kid, don't ask them open-ended questions. Like ask them something very specific to get very specific answers. And so with Jay, once he jumps in the car and the days I pick him up, my questions to him are, hey, who excited you most? Like, which one of your friends did you have the best time playing with today? Right? And what subject in school, were you most curious about? Like, what question did you ask that you were really excited to? Like, when I ask very specific answers, I realize he's more talkative. And on the days when I'm kind of putting him through my own little experiment, my own little social experiment, and I go, how was school? He goes, it was good. Even
Yeah.
if it was bad, he'll say it was good because they just kind of wanted to stop. But when I ask these probing things, it's sort of like us as men. I think we're conditioned that way. We are programmed to just tell folks, I'm all right, I'm good. And there's nothing good about what you're feeling at the moment, but you're
Yeah.
programmed to say, I'm good, so just move on from it, right? And my biggest thing
Fantastic.
is, yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Fantastic is my trick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I tell people that all the time. Listen, if you're feeling shitty and you don't want to deal with people and people are asking you, hey, Derek, how you doing today, Derek? Fantastic. How are you? Man, it shuts them up. He's
yeah,
doing better than me. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Shit.
It shuts them up while you're dying inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell
like
yeah.
that's the part, like almost 80% of all suicides happen in men,
Yep.
right? And
Hmm.
of those 80%, 45 to 50% of those were reported with having some type of mental health issue or challenge. And so that those are learned things. Like we learn to suppress all of these emotions that are physically and biologically killing us. Like our cancer rates are higher also because we're repressing these emotions. And so we also have to do a better job at being okay saying that we're not okay. Like, hey, how are you doing today, Derek? Yo, Chris, today's not a good day for me. I'm processing a lot. I'm gonna figure out how to get through the day. But right now, I just want to say that I'm not okay. I think there's power in that, and there's power in letting our kids know those days like where it's rough because we try to protect them from everything. But I have found myself sometimes when Jay's like, "Dad, is gonna be okay," when I'm like, "Yo, this is a rough day, man. I'm not like doing well," and he'll put his little hands on my back and he's like, "You'll be all right, Dad." And his little thing to me is like, because we box, right? He's like, "You're a boxer, Dad. Like you're tough, right? You're a boxer, right? Like, boxers will figure it out." And it makes me feel so good because I'm expressing to him that I don't always have it figured out, but like when it matters, I'll make sure I figure it out for all of us, right? But I
Hmm.
can show that. But by asking him those specific questions, I get to put the pieces of the puzzle together a little faster. Like,
Yep.
hey, what about your day in school today? Didn't you like? And then you'd be like, oh well, someone did this, as opposed to like, so it's just kind of like those little tips and tricks that I've learned to amass information and learn things from kids, but also what I've learned about myself. Like it took me a long time to just tell folks, yo, I ain't good right now. Like
Yeah.
I'm not good. I don't want to talk about it right now, but I just need someone to know I'm not good so they can understand why I am the way I am in that moment.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fantastic points that you just brought up, Chris. From the specifics of the little ones, because I now that they're older, they're privy to that because I did start out with some of the more probing questions, and what I've noticed, like adults, if you and it's unfortunate but sometimes I just want to have an interaction. And so people gravitate towards chaos. And what I mean by that is if you ask them, who made you laugh today? My 10-year-old will just be like, I don't know, nobody made me laugh. But if I say, anybody make you upset? Just and the question is genuine, but I'll probably get more of an answer just because like he's very much a kid who has emotions, right? Like he just wants to go and do his thing, learn and be done. And so if anybody gets in the way of that, then he gets the feathers get ruffled a little bit. So the vague questions are back. Sometimes the probing questions that are a little bit more, I don't want to say stoking the fire, but they're definitely along those lines just to get some sort of interaction with him. But we always end it amicable for the most part about his day. What you really brought up that was really important, I feel, and sort of a great segue as we head towards the end of this conversation is about what a lot of us have said. My phrase that is I can't even tell is just you talk about a automatic reaction. I'll figure it out, right? Like it's whatever hurdle, burden, item, catastrophe, disaster is put in front of us. It's just an automatic response of I'll figure it out. Don't know what it is, don't know how the hell to do it, but it's my job, it's my responsibility to finish that sentence and make it the truth. Like I'll figure it out, and it's the same thing as I'm good, right? Like it's just a response. It's ingrained in us, whether we're doing good or not. We say, yeah, I'm doing good. When something comes on our table, I think a lot of fathers are just prone to say, well, I'll figure it out. And just they do, right? But the question that I want to pose to the group that I think is really important because especially, when it comes to what bottling up does to us. My last question for you guys is outside of this group, which is one of the coolest things that I've been a part of as a dad, but like do you have anybody where you can kind of lean on? Do you have anybody where you can just be a little bit vulnerable? Whether that's we
That's not your wife.
that's the thank you. Yes.
So,
Mhm.
so,
Yeah.
Yes. Do
so
you do you have anybody?
I'll answer that without giving out too many names. I actually have a few different people, right, that I very much like to talk to, and that I have to like um what's the right word that I can unload on, for example, because I don't want to always unload on one person or the same person, or I have different personalities that I may unload specific things with because of I know I'm gonna get the right type of support based off of whatever I'm going through. And then the other thing I'll say, a lot of the reason why I asked to join this group because I found talking on here very therapeutic for myself. But yeah, I definitely have some people, and if I'm really going through something, I'm not shy about um, expressing myself. And that's something I learned as I got older because I was more of that, like for a long time, and I used to pride myself on this too. I used to tell people, like, you'll never find somebody that can control their emotions as better than I can. I'm like a light switch, I'll just turn it right off. But that turning it right off was like eating me up on the inside and turning me into like a robot
Yeah.
where I wasn't really like processing or feeling emotions. I was just blocking everything and then just put my head down and muscle through, which wasn't healthy. Where now it's like, I can talk to people, I can talk to, I can have an emotionally intelligent conversation for the most part without getting angry. And that's really one of the things I really um, try to be very well at is just talking to folks whether it's about myself or a problem that bothers me, or if it's just discussing a problem, which essentially at the end of the day, what I really want to do is protect my peace. And that doesn't mean we can't talk about problems, but it means how do we talk about this problem
Mm.
without, being at each other's throat or screaming or anything. And sometimes the way before I even go to try to talk to somebody specifically, I need to talk to one of my outlets, for example.
Yeah, I think Is said it very, very well. I too like Is. I'm very. I have a village, man. I have a village, fellas. And when Larry first told me about this group, I was like, yeah, I can't. What's up? Like, what's going on? Like, can I jump in? Can I tag in? Like, I need some folks to talk to about these issues too, because other than my cousin in Massachusetts, everyone who is part of my family here, they're not blood family. They're my chosen family.
Mhm.
But those are the people that I share. I can just be myself with, right? But I've also been blessed with an amazing family, an amazing group of men in my family who, for all intended purposes, raised me, right? Those who are just a couple of years older to those who are a decade older. They're father figures, they're brothers to me, they're uncles, right? They're cousins. I can go to any one of those guys and just say, look, I'm having a terrible day, or the sky feels like it's falling apart, it's falling down on me, or I just can't carry the pressure. I can't do it anymore. And those men sit me down and in their own individual ways provide counseling, provide guidance, provide mentorship that will help uplift me, right? Never belittling, never minimizing, never devaluing or dehumanizing me, but they do it in a way that brings me back. And just like, yo, you got this. Like you've worked hard for this, and if you're about to fall, like you got a whole football field out here. Like we're good. Like we got you. And not many people have that. And some people have that and don't know um, how to embrace it. I've learned to embrace that community because I don't want to say use. I don't use them, right? Like I embrace them,
Hmm.
and they embrace me because they know I will be right there by their side should something ever happen for them. But I also have the privilege because of the nature of my work. I speak to tens of thousands of people a year, and I am incredibly transparent with my feelings on stage. I cry in front of human beings I will never ever see in my life again. And I am okay with that now because it is a therapeutic process. Like it's release. I feel like a lot of what I do in my job, it's almost like therapy. And that's my therapy session, talking to them about how do we improve the lives of kids, of families, of communities. I realize when I'm doing that, I get so incredibly vulnerable and so incredibly emotional that oftentimes people will come to me at the end and they'll just like give me a hug, like, oh, it's gonna be all right. I'm like, man, like it's cool. Like I'm building a whole village without even realizing it. So it's not just the people that I know personally, it's also the strangers who have been a part of my life and had said these things to me in passing that has either made me feel better, made me smile, made me ask myself a different type of question, altered my perspective. Like I'm truly thankful to them because in more ways than one, they too are a part of this village.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. And the two of you having the ability to have multiple people in your lives and realize it and recognize it and not be, is you said it, Chris, you underlined it, the knowing it's there and having the ability to embrace are two completely different things, right? Like going going over that line and whether it's fear, right? Fear for embarrassment, fear for Chris, everything that you led this this conversation with in the very beginning about um what masculinity truly is and is reaching out to help for help. Is that masculine? You know what I mean? I think there's a big population of men and fathers who might feel that way. So it's great to hear, from your perspectives that it's like, nah, got my people and my people got me, and that's really encouraging to hear. Larry, what about you?
Me, I used to. My brother Fred was that person for me. So it's been 13 years without having that person, which is kind of interesting. It's tough at sometimes. Kind of feel like the world is ganging up on you just because you don't have, like, I don't have no outlet. Some of that comes from just growing up in the 90s, I guess, you know. In the 90s, the guys was like slime balls and stuff. You couldn't talk to your friends about girlfriend problems and stuff. Next thing you know, man, that dude is walking with your girlfriend. So it's
Right.
just, you know what I mean? So it's just things like that. And like, I never had like a father to tell me certain things. So I stuck to those like they were, you know, it was what it was. Um, so, mixed with some experiences, maybe personally, or some experiences that I've seen or whatever. Um, yeah, I don't feel comfortable sharing my personal self with, you know, just other people. My brother Fred was just that one person. I feel like us as people, we have at least one person that we can share with. Um, but I think like mixed in with trust issues and stuff, I don't trust, you know, people to tell them something personal or embarrassing or whatever and not go turn around and tell somebody else or not turn around and judge me. You know what I'm saying? First and foremost, you know what I mean? Um, so I just rather keep everything to myself now within this past 13 years. Before that, yeah, my brother Fred, I that was my confidant. I'd tell him everything, what was wrong with me, what's bothering me, what's not bothering me, whatever it was. But yeah, it's been 13 years since not really having nobody. And I'm not gonna say that I don't have nobody outside of my wife. I have the barbershop. It's like a stage. You know what I mean? Like I actually consider taking up comedy because I could just talk about all this stuff and make it funny and there it goes, you know? But yeah.
That was uh I really appreciate you sharing, Larry. We really appreciate you sharing. Um, 13 years is a long time to have that burden. If it's any consolation, the love and respect, obviously, that that this group has for you and the support, like we're always here. I know you know that, but
Yeah.
I still think it's worth
Likewise.
repeating. Um, and I feel that I've really gotten to know a side of you through this group that was just really, it was really great to see a different side of you personally. And whether you know it or not, like some of the stuff that you do share in here is pretty personal. And I'm happy that you are open enough and we are open enough, to have that. So, um, you know,
Yeah, for sure. I try to utilize this group too.
yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
And I think it's kind of the kind of in the middle. With my own, I have a couple people. More recently, um, actually my broker, right? So he has been um, just a really positive um, force in my life, since we met and just sort of kind of the business mentorship kind of turned into like the big brother mentorship, because I lost my dad at 22. So I had some experiences growing up and what I tried to remember to model, but I never had anybody to bounce ideas off of, and that sat with me and still sits with me, and I think that speaking to him over these past couple years as I've gone through some things that I just don't understand as a man and as a dad, things that have just bewildered me or left me speechless. um, he's kind of just been there, and he's had the ability to just be like, "What's up, dude? Like, let's just rap." And we'll sit down and we'll chat as two men, and it's been really I've been really grateful, and there are a couple other people in my life, two or three who I hold dearly and have some pretty private conversations with. I know I could if I did reach out to a lot of people. So to Iz and to Chris's point, I think that the ability is there if I chose, but for whatever reason, I just don't choose outside of like a couple. And maybe that's just because I have a feeling of like you get it, but you don't get it.
Yeah,
And I know that's in between my years, but that's kind of nips at me with every conversation, except for a few people and this group, right? Like legitimately, like this group, nothing's been fabricated, and whatever is on my mind that is important to the conversation, then I do say it, without filtering, good, bad, or indifferent. So this is, and especially this topic, we've covered our hour, but I think there's so many things that can be attributed to why this is important to men and to fathers, and so I'll go around, and if you guys have anything else that you want to add before we part. Chris, is there anything that came up that's still on your mind that you wanted to tell the fans and tell the group about the topic?
I mean, first and foremost is just saying thank you for the platform, right? I think the ability for us to just kind of engage in this conversation is incredibly powerful because that in and of itself is an important release. And I don't think enough men get to do that, get to just speak honestly and authentically about things that are on their mind, challenges that they're dealing with, how they're engaging, solutions that they're brainstorming. Like that is a very therapeutic release, and it helps. It helps psychologically, it helps biologically, it helps physiologically. Um, and so, if I'm going to end off with any words, is I hope that we as men can realize that we have to redefine this sort of conventional definition of manhood that has been forced upon us and think about a more comprehensive definition of manhood that allows us to be emotional while navigating and also learning how to control our emotions, not being overwhelmed by them, but being able to express them when we feel them, while still being the protectors and the providers and as strong as we are. Like we can be all of those things. We don't have to pick and choose. I think now is really the time because we are dying prematurely by holding these repressed feelings in, and it is hurting our families. It is hurting our communities, and we're hurting ourselves. And so, find someone to talk to. Find someone to talk to. I know that building trust is a difficult thing, and like Larry, I too, I struggle with trust issues, man. But sometimes if you gotta need to find a way out, you got to push through, and I push through, and once someone violates that trust, they jeopardize that trust. And I learned not to trust them again. But I have also learned to be brave and to be open with some of those things that I'm dealing with, because maybe there's some pearls and wisdoms that people can share with me that can help alter my life, alter my perspective, and help me become a better man and become a better father. So talk to someone, share with someone, and definitely understand that your mental health is a real thing and you have to prioritize it.
Excellent. Appreciate that. Is
yeah. So just real quick. So one of the things that was surprising to me a little bit that men's mental health that only became a thing being talked about in 1994, and it only started off as a 1 week thing, and it had to do with like there were so many men that were suicidal. I believe you brought that up earlier in the conversation, Chris. So to think that we really haven't been talking about this very long, and many of us, especially us on this show, and then many of us around our age group, came from that time where it really wasn't discussed. And, 1994, I think I was 14 years old, and that's when they finally started talking about that. And then, like many of you, my dad died when I was young. So learning those things or being able to have those conversations, they didn't occur. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's stuff that was being learned later in life after the fact, and more so in my, like, because we're all adults, or we all think we're adults at one point of our life, and then we really become adults. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in a maturity level,
Yep.
and everything. And that's when things really start to like come together and get better. So just the fact that the four of us are where we are, and are able to talk about this, and as well as the fact that it hasn't been something that has been a prominent, the conversations about it hasn't been prominent. I feel like as the years go on, it will get better for many folks to recognize that it's okay to talk about these things.
Very good. I agree with that. Definitely agree. Larry, take us home.
Yeah, as do I. I agree with Chris and Iz. Just for us fellas, guys around the world, mental health is not only crazy. No matter what comes to my mind for, oh damn, my phone died. Oh shit.
Uh,
Uh,
You still there, Larry?
we can still hear you.
Yeah, just the camera shut off. Plug in a charger.
I think he ran to go grab the
Yep.
charger.
Yep. Yep. All right.
What
Well,
What about you, Derek? You got any closing remarks?
this is it's mental health and the topics is always a little bit sobering for me. Um, I have felt that my personal journey has been has been really helped along by my wife because of her advocacy just for the topic. And I feel that I've always been open, um, and open-minded to a lot of things. But the mental health piece has always just been suppressed and felt like it's not where I thought that anything was bad, but I always thought I just never needed it. Like I'm fine. Like, I'll just coast on ability. Um, and so having the journey that I've had is to your point about how I think society, Chris, you said it as well. It's becoming more and more mainstream. It's becoming more and more okay to say I'm not okay and to work through it, whether it's privately or publicly. And I'm grateful that we have these platforms, to talk about it. And it needs to be done more because it's a silent killer, literally, right? And metaphorically. And it's good. Conversations like this are good. And although the material may be heavy, it's still very, very therapeutic. And I'm appreciative for this as well. And so with that, I'm also appreciative for everybody watching. Guys, you are fantastic dads, and I am happy to be associated with you guys. To all the people who are watching tonight, we hope that you enjoyed this conversation. It needs to be more. And what I'll say on behalf of the group is we really appreciate your support, and we are here to support you as well. So if there is anybody out there who wants to get in touch with us, we are always an open book, whether it's just talking about anything that's on your mind about being a dad and mental stresses or anything, we are here. You know how to get in touch with all of us. If not, drop a comment on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or wherever you can find us because we want to hear you. We want to be supportive and we want you to be involved. So we appreciate everybody out there. Thank you guys again for joining. This was a fantastic topic. Really appreciate you guys. Larry, when you see this on review, we really appreciate you, man. We love you all. And thanks for tuning in.